Unhealthy people are easy. Let them smoke, smoke, smoke. All right, Maggie, let's get to work. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Before we return to our exciting show, let's learn a little bit more about our fabulous Lucky Strikes. Millions of smokers love the taste of Lucky, and here's why. Lucky tastes better. It's toasted. That's the famous Lucky Strike process that brings Lucky's fine tobacco to its peak of flavor. A process that tones up this mild, naturally good-tasting tobacco to make it even taste better. And here to give us some interesting details is our Lucky Strike spokesman, Mr. Fred LaRue.
You ready? 3, 2, 1.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I just come back from the Lucky Strike factory and learned some of their precious secrets. I was shown an elaborate machine for measuring the moisture content of tobacco about to be made into our favorite Luckies. And believe me, smoking enjoyment depends a lot on maintaining the proper moisture content. Too much moisture in your cigarette would burn too slow. Too little and it will taste dry. That's why the American Tobacco Company keeps a sharp eye on the moisture content of the fine tobacco that goes into every Lucky Strike. Yes, the fine tobacco that goes into every Lucky Strike gets a lot of expert attention all along the line. The moisture test is just one of the hundreds of quality controls regularly made to ensure that each and every Lucky lives up to our famous acronym, LSMFT. Lucky Strike means fine tobacco.
Everything's been destroyed. What's left for us? What's left for Susie and everyone we love? Honey!
It's working. We're okay.
Thanks, Fred, and now we return to Professor Pearson.
As I sat down with these notes on paper, I'm obsessed by the thought that I might be the last living man on Earth. I have been hiding in this empty house near Grover's Mill, a small island of daylight cut off by the black smoke from the rest of the world. All that happened before the arrival of these monstrous creatures in the world now seems part of another life, a life that has no continuity with the present, furtive existence of the lonely derelict who pencils these words on the back of some astronomical notes bearing the signature of Richard Pearson. I look down at my blackened hands, my torn shoes, my tattered clothes, and I try to connect them with the professor who lives at Princeton and who, on the night of October 30th, glimpsed through his telescope an orange splash of light on a distant planet. My wife, my colleagues, my students, my books, my observatory, my world. Where are they? Did they ever exist? Am I Richard Pearson? What day is it? Do days exist without calendars? Does time pass when there are no human hands left to wind the clocks? In writing down my daily life, I tell myself, I shall preserve human history between the dark covers of this little book, those meant to record the movements of the stars. But to write, I must live, and to live, I must eat. I find moldy bread in the kitchen and an orange not too spoiled to swallow. I keep watch at the window. From time to time, I catch a sight of the Martian above the black smoke. The smoke still holds the house in its black coil, but at length, there's a hissing sound, and suddenly I see a Martian mounted on his machine, spraying the air with a jet of steam as if to dissipate the smoke. I watch in a corner as his huge metal legs nearly brush against the house. Exhausted by terror, I fall asleep. It's morning. Morning. Sun streams in the window. The black cloud is lifted and the scorched meadows to the north look as though a black snowstorm has passed over them. I venture from the house. I push on north. For some reason, I feel safer trailing these monsters than running away from them. And I keep a careful watch. I have seen the Martians feed. Should one of their machines appear over the top of the trees, I am ready to fling myself flat on the earth. I come to a chestnut tree. October chestnuts are ripe. I fill my pockets. I must keep alive. 2 days I wander in a vague northerly direction through a desolate world. Finally, I notice a living creature, a small red squirrel in a beech tree. I stare at him in wonder. He stares back at me. I believe at that moment the animal and I shared the same emotion, the joy of finding another living being. I push on north. I find dead cows in a brackish field beyond, the charred ruins of a dairy. The silo remains standing guard over the wasteland, like a lighthouse deserted by the sea. Astride the silo perches a weathercock. The arrow points north. The next day I came to a city vaguely familiar in its contours, yet its buildings strangely dwarfed and leveled off, as if a giant sliced off its highest towers with a capricious sweep of his hand. I reached the outskirts. I found Newark, undemolished but humbled by some whim of the advancing Martians. Presently, with an odd feeling of being watched, I caught sight of something crouching in a doorway. I made a step towards it, and it rose up and became a man armed with a large knife.
Stop! Where did you come from?
I come from many places. A long time ago from Princeton.
Princeton, huh? That's near Grover's Mill.
Yes.
Grover's Mill. There's no food here. This is my country. All this end of town down to the river. There's only food for one. Which way are you going?
I don't know. I guess I'm looking for people.
What was that? Did you just hear something just then?
Only a bird. A live bird.
You get to know that birds have shadows these days. Say, we're in the open here. Let's go into this doorway and talk.
Have you seen any Martians?
No. They've gone over to New York. At night, the sky's alive with their lights. Just as if people were still living in it. By daylight, you can't see them. 5 days ago, a couple of them carried some big across the flat from the airport. I believe they're learning how to fly.
Fly?
Yeah, fly.
Then it's all over with humanity. Stranger, there's still you and I, 2 of us left.
They got themselves in good. They wrecked the greatest country in the world. Those green stars. They're probably falling somewhere every night. They've only lost 1 machine. There isn't anything to do. We're done. We're late.
Where were you? You're in a uniform.
Yeah, what's left of it. I was in the militia. National Guard. That's good. There wasn't any war, any more than there's a war between man and ants.
And we're eatable ants. I found them out. What will they do with us?
I've got it all thought out. Right now we're caught as we're wanted. Marshall only has to go a few miles to get a crowd to run. But they won't keep doing that. They'll begin catching us systematic-like. Keeping the best and storing us in cages and things. They haven't begun on us yet.
Not begun.
Not begun. All that's happened so far is because we haven't had sense enough to keep quiet. Bothering them with guns and such stuff, and losing our heads and rushing off in crowds. Now, instead of our rushing around blind, we've got to fix ourselves up. Fix ourselves up according to the way things are now. Cities, nations, civilization, progress. Done.
But if that's so, what is there to live for?
Well, there won't be any more concerts for a few million years or so. And no nice little dinners at restaurants. If it's amusement you're after, I guess the game's up.
And what is there left?
Life. That's it. I want to live. Yeah, and so do you. We're not going to be exterminated. And I don't want to mean to be caught either, and tamed, and fattened, and bred like an ox.
What are you going to do?
I'm going on. Right under their feet. I've got a plan. We men as men are finished. We don't know enough. We've got to learn plenty before we've got a chance. And we've got to live and keep free while we learn, see? I've got it all thought out, see?
Tell me the rest.
Well, it isn't all of us that were made for wild beasts, you know. And that's what it's got to be. That's why I watched you. All these little office workers used to live in their little houses. They'd be no good. They haven't got any stuff in them. They just used to run off to work. I've seen hundreds of them, running wild. They catch their commuter train in the morning for fear they'll get canned if they didn't. Running back at night, afraid they won't be home in time for dinner. Lives insured and a little invested in case of accidents. And on Sundays, worried about the year after, the Martians will be a godsend for these guys. Nice, roomy cages, good food, careful breeding, no worries. After a week or so, about chasing in the fields, on empty stomachs, they'll come to be glad to be caught.
You've got it all thought out, haven't you?
You bet I have. And that isn't all. These Martians will make pets of some of them, train them to do tricks. Who knows? Get sentimental over a pet boy who grew up and had to be killed. And some, maybe they'll train to kill us.
No, that's impossible.
Yes,
No,
they will. There's men who will do it gladly. If one of them ever comes after me, why?
In the meantime, you and I and others like us, where are we to live when the Martians own the Earth?
I've got it all figured out. We'll live underground. I've been thinking about the sewers. Under New York are miles and miles of them. The main ones are big enough for anybody. Then there's cellars, vaults, underground storerooms, railway tunnels, subways. You begin to see, huh? We'll get a bunch of strong men together. No weak ones. That rubbish, out.
And you meant me to go.
I gave you a chance, didn't I?
We won't quarrel about that. Go on.
And we've got to make safe places for us to stay in. See? And we get all the books we can. Science books. That's where men like you come in, see? We'll raid the museums. We'll even spy on the Martians. It may not be much we have to learn before, just imagine this. 4 or 5 of their own fighting machines suddenly start off. Heat rays right and left. Not a Martian in them. Not a Martian in them. But men. Men who have learned the way how. It may even be in our time. Gee, imagine having one of those lovely things with its heat rate wide and free. We turn it on the Martians. We turn it on men. We bring everybody down to their knees.
That's your plan?
You and me, a few more of us, we own the world.
I see.
Say, what's the matter? Where are you going?
Not to your world. Goodbye, stranger. After parting with the artilleryman, I came at last to the Hollands tunnel. I entered that silent tube, anxious to know the fate of the great city on the other side of the Hudson. Cautiously, I came out of the tunnel and made my way up Canal Street. I reached 14th Street, and there again were black powder and several bodies, and an evil, ominous smell from the gratings of the cellars of some of the houses. I wandered up through the 30s and 40s. I stood alone on Times Square. I caught sight of a lean dog running down 7th Avenue with a piece of dark brown meat in his jaws, and a pack of starving mongrels at his heels. He made a wide circle around me as though he feared I might prove a fresh competitor. I walked up Broadway in the direction of that strange powder, past silent shop windows displaying their mute wares to empty sidewalks, past the Capitol Theater, silent, dark, past a shooting gallery where a row of empty guns faced an arrested line of wooden ducks. Near Columbus Circle, I noticed models of 1939 motor cars in the showrooms facing empty streets. From over the top of the General Motors building, I watched a flock of blackbirds circling in the sky. I hurried on. Suddenly, I caught sight of the hood of a Martian machine standing somewhere in Central Park, gleaming in the late afternoon sun. An insane idea. I rushed recklessly across Columbus Circle and into the park. I climbed a small hill above the pond at 60th Street. From there, I could see standing in a silent row along the mall 19 of those great metal titans. Their cowls empty, their great steel arms hanging listlessly by their sides. I looked in vain for the monsters that inhabit those machines. Suddenly, my eyes were attracted to the immense flock of blackbirds that hovered directly below me. They circled to the ground, and there, before my eyes, stark and silent, lay the Martians with the hungry birds, pecking and tearing brown shreds of flesh from their dead bodies. Later, when their bodies were examined in the laboratories, it was found that they were killed by the putrefactive and diseased bacteria, against which their systems were unprepared. Slain, after all man's defenses had failed, by the humblest thing that God in his wisdom put upon this earth. Before the cylinder fell, there was a general persuasion that, through all of the deep of space, no life existed beyond the petty surface of our minute sphere. Now we see further. Dim and wonderful is the vision I have conjured up in my mind, spreading slowly from the seabed of the solar systems throughout the inanimate vastness of sidereal space. But that is a remote dream. Maybe the destruction of the Martians is only a reprieve, and to them, not to us, is the future ordained. Perhaps. Strange as it now seems to sit in my peaceful study at Princeton, writing down this last chapter of the record begun at a deserted farm in Grover's Mill. Strange to see from my window the university spires, dim and blue through an April haze. Strange to watch children playing in the streets. Strange to see young people strolling along the garden, where the new spring grass heals the last black scars of a bruised earth. Strange to watch the sightseers enter the museum, where the disassembled parts of a Martian machine are kept from public view. Strange, when I recall the time when I first saw it, bright and clean cut, hard and silent under the dawn of that last great day.
Honey, it was just a show. Just a show, that's all.
I feel so silly.
Oh, don't feel that way. I'm sure there were folks out there that really believed it.
Oh.
This is Orson Welles, ladies and gentlemen. Out of character to assure you that the War of the Worlds has no further significance than as the holiday offering was intended to be. The Mercury Theater's own radio version of dressing up in a sheet and jumping out of a bush and saying boo. Starting now, we couldn't soap all of your windows and steal all of your garden gates by tomorrow night. So we did the next best thing. We annihilated the world before your very ears and utterly destroyed CBS. You will be relieved, I hope, to learn that we didn't mean any of it, and both institutions are still open for business. So goodbye, everybody, and remember the terrible lesson you learned tonight. That grinning, glowing, globular invader in your living room is an inhabitant of the pumpkin patch, and in every doorbell rings and nobody's there. That wasn't a Martian, it's Halloween. Good night.
Good night, Earthlings. Don't worry, we won't hurt you. We haven't yet.
And 3, 2, 1.